Hey everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're here to talk about episode 3 of the Ossan Newbie Adventurer. It amazes me when I think about the fact that this was actually the last show that ended up on my schedule to cover for the season, because this is quickly becoming one of my favorites and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I just love how kooky the comedy is. I love how earnest the characters are. I love the contrast between Rick and his party, and I think it's cute how we've got the old guild clerk, co-worker who's sitting there and watching us advance and everything. I think that's really sweet. And I just love how everything about this show just kind of comes together to create this really genuine and fun time with this overall quirky premise that, as far as I can tell from this episode, is impressively and actually evolving, which was something that some of us were genuinely concerned about. To be fair, I don't think we have by any stretch of the imagination seen the last of Rick's doubt in himself. I'm sure he'll have moments where he'll question things or where greater challenges will test his mettle, but I think we've definitely made some progress in this episode, and I'm thoroughly impressed. First up, though, we definitely need to talk about that guy at the start of the episode, because that was absolutely hilarious, and all I could think in my head as I watched him with those little appraisal goggles or skill or whatever it was he had was that it just made me think of the "it's over 9,000" thing from Dragon Ball Z, and I just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed because that was just so perfect, and it just so beautifully encapsulates how much that other people's doubt or other people's lack of acknowledgement of Rick's skill and ability have actually affected him, and how much consequence there could potentially be for people in continuing to doubt him. I mean, sure, I felt a little sorry for the guy when he dropped to the ground, but I mean, yo, buddy, you looked at your own peril. You just told us that seeing high skill levels makes you feel unwell. The idea that you would automatically presume every person coming in is going to suck was totally and completely on you. The next thing I absolutely need to highlight in this episode was the comedy of Annette and the girl that Rick used to work with meeting each other, because I mean, the overall feminine battle of wills over who is going to end up with Rick was very obvious and very shown forward, whether they said it to each other or not. It was very clear, even from facial expressions, that they were sizing each other up. And I mean, if that was all that was going on, I might have acknowledged it, but there wouldn't really be anything here. What I found hilarious and goofy and over the top and just genuinely funny is the fact that we saw their boobs basically doing dueling banjos. What on earth, anime? It's been a while since I've seen something quite this silly. And I mean, I'm not somebody who gets mad at this kind of stuff. I praised something akin to this in the levels of silliness, at least, last season in Remonster, because I mean, if we're going to have situations where overt sexualization is going to happen, please make it comedy. It works really well. I mean, it wasn't something where I'm like, this is the most brilliant thing ever, but it was like, okay, you got your point across, and you got to actually do something that was at least slightly funny in the process. So there was definitely that, and I will say that despite that opening salvo between the two characters, I did appreciate the reality that when Renette actually is walking with the girl over to where the other members of the guild are sitting, she actually warns the girl about the fact that the dwarf elf hybrid gunman is kind of pervy, and she's like, yo, don't sit next to him or you'll get sexually assaulted. Now, to be objective and fair, we don't know whether or not the two of them could have potentially hit it off or something, but this isn't that kind of show, so I'm not really worried about it. It was definitely something for a laugh, and it showed that despite the fact that they both potentially have interest in Rick, that they were still able to be decent and civil to each other outside of the silly comedy that had occurred, which was something that I thought was actually rather praiseworthy. We'll have to see whether this other girl will be sticking around and become a continual character throughout the show. We've seen her a couple times now, but I'm definitely at least mildly intrigued in how all the different relationships, whether it's Rick with these different girls, or whether it's just the overall dynamics of the guild and how everybody is going to behave, will actually work moving forward. Each of these characters were at least slightly more spotlighted in this episode in flashback, and it's really fun to see how each of their unique and distinct personalities have in some way contributed to the way that Rick carries himself, the skills he has learned, and the experiences that he has had. And one of the key things that I think is so important about Rick and his story and his story's message is the reality that it isn't just a matter of do you have talent or do you not have talent. Talent can definitely help, but having determination, working hard, and not giving up are all also incredibly important keys to becoming successful in something. You don't necessarily just need to have talent, because sometimes a danger of talent can be the reality that talent can make certain things become too easy, and then when or if something challenging comes along, somebody who has coasted on talent does have a potential danger of giving up because they're not used to actually facing adversity or dealing with any kind of difficulty in what they're trying to achieve. The three noble siblings continue to be royal pains in the ass, but their contrast in behavior and their contrast in how their skills work in relation to how the characters from the guild work and the experiences that Rick has had work is also very interesting, and I like how there is that contrast because it makes each group of characters stand out. I like the fact that while we did have a legitimately serious fight between Rick and the sibling that had caused trouble in the last episode, that we still got some comedic moments out of it, and it was still an overall fun time where even after Rick had won, Rick continued to maintain being decent and gracious, and it was funny because he actually called the other guy who is younger than him his adventure senpai, because while Rick is older, Rick still doesn't have as much experience with this as the other guy does. And I mean, the other guy wasn't super noble or decent about it. He kind of just sulked off because he didn't like the fact that he lost, and he was like, I'm gonna be your tester for the next thing you do too, and I'm gonna beat you then. Which, I mean, okay, fine, whatever, that's no problem. It seems like these characters are going to be a recurring situation for Rick as he advances in his skills and abilities, but that's fine because it creates some kind of consistency and continuity in the story, and they are quirky enough that they're fun. On the plus side, we did see that Angelica actually acknowledged us, which was refreshing because it shows that even if these characters aren't just instantly gonna come around and start kissing Rick's ass or something, which isn't necessarily what I'd want anyway, I actually like the contrast between them. I like the fact that we are slowly starting to see at least the slightest hint that there could be something more to those characters. Because while they are funny as they are, seeing them slowly and organically grow as characters and become more multi-layered would definitely be potentially interesting. Overall, though, this was another fun, good-hearted, and enjoyable episode of the Ossan Newbie Adventurer. This is not one of the series that I'm following for deep and complex plot or super amazing writing. It's just a generally feel-good, very optimistic, and very funny show that I'm definitely enjoying each week and that I'm having a really great time with. But those are my thoughts. I'd love to know what you guys felt about this episode, so drop a comment below and let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Talk to you later. Bye!